I'd like to start by letting you all know just how much I appreciate the opportunity to dive deeper into the spiritual disciplines. As preparing these lessons has helped me. I've benefited more spiritually from preparing lessons like this and from reading this book. Don Whitney is not only very much spiritually insightful, but a great author on top of that. So he really knows how to present things. So I really have enjoyed reading this book. With that thought, I also wanted to bring up the idea of maybe it's time to step back and look at where we've been and see where we're going from here. So let's look at what we started with. We said that the spiritual disciplines are for a very specific purpose, and that purpose is what? To achieve godliness. Yes, and I see, or I have made, hopefully you see that there is a word up here that's hyphenated that we want to say is the same thing as godliness, but we want to be like who? Christ. Yeah, that's Christ likeness. And when we are shooting for Christ likeness, we need to keep those things in perspective.
It's over here.
I might have to fix that later. We'll do away with that for a while. Legs come off. All right. So where are we going? Well, we're going godliness. We're going Christ-like. There's lots of ways to get there, and these spiritual disciplines are going to help us find pathways. So this very crude drawing is a way for us to visually look at where we've been. So far, we've talked about one thing that for sure helps us get the nature and the insight of God, and that's what?
The Word.
Bible intake, right? So we talked about taking in the Bible. Okay? We get insight into God's nature, into what He expects of us. Also, we have communication with Him. What do we call that spiritual discipline? Prayer. Then we're looking at worship, right? So how do we present ourselves to Him? Okay, through worship. And then we talked about sharing that with others, evangelism. Then we went into serving. And we're looking at stewardship. And I miscounted again. Not only did I miscount on the handouts, so I miscounted on the arrows. But yes, there's so many more arrows, right? There's so many other spiritual disciplines that we could include in this study. So yeah, that's kind of a ongoing number of arrows. But that's where we're at right now. And on your handout, you notice that there's a way to introduce this that's so real to us, it's almost scary. But think about this. What events have produced the greatest stress in your life over the past week? Go ahead, take some time and write them down. All right, what's a big stressor?
Family issues.
Mm-hmm. Something that's caused you stress.
Jobs.
Yeah, specifically. Well, I'll just leave it at that. I'll just leave it at jobs because we got some work to go with that. Where else?
Health.
Okay.
Relationships. Time management.
Others?
Busy schedule.
Some things that have caused me stress. Feeling overloaded. Overloaded with responsibilities at school. Overloaded with responsibilities in coaching. Overloaded with responsibilities at home. Graduation's coming up. My baby. Even overwhelmed with responsibilities at church. So all kinds of things demand our attention. Also cause a response of stress sometimes. Okay. So what about running late for an appointment? That's happened a few times over the last couple of weeks. What about paying bills? Okay. So bills. Some other things. A traffic jam on Scottsville Road. I mean, am I alone there?
No.
I didn't think so. I know this is kind of a thing of the past, but we used to balance our checkbooks, and that caused stress. How about unexpected car repairs? That first time you touch those brakes and they start to sing to you, well, another brake job's coming. And sometimes just running short of cash. We know payday's not here yet. Payday's still 2 weeks away. And have I mentioned graduation's coming up? Have I mentioned a lot of family birthdays? Have I mentioned and it's just this and this and this and this, and so financially it gets overwhelming. It gets stressful.
Expectations. A lot of that stuff that you're talking about is undue pressure we put on ourselves because we feel we're expected, we have to, and we want to. But a lot of things that we do, we could, you're gonna hate on me for this, I'm sure. We put a lot of stress on ourselves because we don't want us to be seen in poor light. We don't want to let people down. We have a hard time saying no.
Biting off more than we can chew. My dad told me that once. He told me that 1,000 times. Yeah, that's right. So each of these anxiety producers here, we'll call them stressors, anxiety producers. They're if you look up there, do you see a pattern? You might see two patterns. All those have to do with what?
Selfishness.
How we spend our time and money, right? It's all about time and money. So when all of these, and like Russell said, we want to spend more time, right? We know they expect us to spend more time. We know that they expect us to spend more money. So it's all about time, money, and what we think people expect of us. Okay? So how are we going to be stewards of these resources to help us there? Okay? So that's where we're going to be focused on today. The discipline is called the use of time and the use of money. Collectively, you can just call that stewardship. Okay? Something that's very much neglected in my life, and something that I can see our younger generation have a lot going against them in terms of being good stewards, because a lot of their time is spent in the digital world, and they don't have the other times to devote to things. And it's becoming a more serious issue day by day. I see it every day at school, to the point where our young people now will actually lie to you to let you know, so that you don't know that they are addicted to their phone. Okay? I don't want you to know that I'm addicted to my phone, so I'm gonna lie and say I don't have it with me today. When in reality, all I really asked for you to do was to put it in a pocket on the wall for 90 minutes while we're trying to learn. And they'll lie to you and say, I don't have it. And then later on you see them with it. Okay? So what is that telling us about our young generation here can't separate themselves from one of them? I don't even know how to explain it. It's such a devastating blow to how we spend our time. That's how we want to spend our time. So we'll get more into that a little bit later, but just wanted to set that up with a look of what is it that's actually stressing us out. All right, so the disciplined use of time. Remember, the goal is to become Christ-like. Let's talk about how Jesus prayed about it. We read John 17, verse 4. It says there, I have brought you glory on earth. This is Christ praying to the Father. I have brought you glory on earth by completing the work you gave me to do. And just like with Jesus, God gives us, you and I, both time and work to do in that time. So he's blessed us with the gifts of time and the work to do while we're here. The more we are like Jesus, the more we will understand why it's just so important, why we have a disciplined use of time. So the spiritual discipline of the use of time is really like another blessing from God. Not only has he created this time for us, but he's created things for us to spend it doing. So here are 10 biblical reasons why I think why it's very clear that the use of time is so very important. You see here on your handout, we use it wisely because the days are evil. We use it wisely because the days are evil. If somebody will turn to Ephesians 5:15-16, read that for us.
Therefore be careful how you walk, not as unwise men, but as wise, making the most of your time, because the days are evil.
That's kind of an interesting turn of phrase, isn't it? How exactly are our days evil? Well, when that was written, what was going on? How were their days evil?
Persecution.
Yeah, definitely persecution, all kinds of opposition going on there. Lots of obstacles. But we are experiencing our own days of evil. I alluded to it a while ago when I talked about how our young people are suffering from this digital stress, the digital expectations. So even without that kind of persecution and oppression that the Ephesians were facing in the first century, we have our own days of evil. All these great thieves of time, the author says, the minions of the world, the flesh and the devil, they all range in form from high-tech, socially acceptable preoccupations to the simple idle talk or ungoverned thoughts. I mean, just envision yourself. We've all done it if we have social media. We're browsing, scrolling through Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is. And the more we read and the more time we spend scrolling, the more our thoughts begin to wander. Not just wandering, but wondering, what are these people thinking that they would type such a thing? What's in these people's hearts that they would lash out at their brother and sister? That they would all caps somebody. Okay? Why? And then where does our mind go? Like I just said, what was in their heart? So here we are judging people's hearts while we're scrolling. So now who's hurting? Not just the people that typed those words, but now who's hurting? Me. Now I'm hurting because I read it. And the more we read, the more we want to read. And that's just, folks, that's just plain and simple. That's Satan's words coming out in social media. And so, you know, I like to think that my time spent on social media is posting positive things about my athletes or posting positive things about my students and doing it. And yeah, that's what I need to be doing. But in between, I'm scrolling and reading all this garbage. And it's a tough thing to know that because our days are evil and that because there's so much hatred being spread that we're letting that steal our time. When I say we, I mean me. Okay? So thoughts must be disciplined, otherwise, you know, just like water, they tend to flow downhill, right? So that's why we got to keep these idle minds set on things above. Colossians 3:2, right? Set your mind on things above. You know, our bodies are inclined to ease, pleasure, gluttony, slothfulness. You know, unless we practice self-control, our bodies will tend to serve evil more than God. So we have to carefully discipline ourselves in how we walk. You know, walking in this world is a scary thing. You know, another thing about discipline too, if we do not discipline our use of time, the purpose of godliness in these evil days will basically keep us from becoming godliness. So the big stressors, the big time thieves are the things that keep us from getting there. All right, and the next thing that you see on the list that is a biblical reason why the use of time is so important. The wise use of time is the preparation for eternity. So people say, wait a minute, why are you even talking about time and eternity in the same sentence? Right? Because what is time to eternity? So
is think about, well, what we have, our reward in eternity, is basically based on what we spend our time doing here. Okay? So our time determines our eternity, how it's spent. So 2 Corinthians 6:2, I think is that that's what I have on your handout there. Now is the time of God's favor. Now is the day of salvation. 2 Corinthians 6:2. Right now is the right time to prepare for where you'll spend eternity. You know, and here's something I liked what the author said. If that is an uncertain or an unsettled matter with you, then now's the time to settle that. If eternity is uncertain, then there's no better time to settle that, get that for certain than now. There's a specific day on the calendar when all my preparation for eternity will be over. There's a day on my calendar. I don't know where it is. But since that day can be any day, I should use my time more wisely, and I should have to prepare. You know, all the time I have to prepare is just something that endlessly beyond the grave. There's no way to do that. So my first, there's no way to actually see where is it that I have to start preparing. Great question, huh? So that leads us to the idea that there's no guarantee, nor there's no more time to prepare for eternity than now. So should we put off responding to the one who made you and gave you that time? So we mentioned a while ago that God gave us the time and the work to do while we're here. So when is there a better time to respond to him and say, you are my creator of time and work and me? So when is the right time to respond to him? Time's now. All right.
Hey, Derek.
Yes.
It seems to me that it's so much easier for us to have that resolve and determination when we're looking into the future. In that moment is when whatever the goal is, we wrestle a whole lot more. It's when we look and say, you know, there's that old poem that says he's going to be all that a person should be tomorrow, you know, but not today. And I think that's the potential struggle of stewardship is, what am I doing with what's in my hand right now?
Yeah, in the moment. Yeah, that's right.
I think the devil is good with us all being so busy that we're using up our time for even sometimes when it's good, when it takes us away from something else. He's fine with us being so busy that we're stressed at
Majoring in minors.
and
That's where he wants us.
he's good with us thinking that we got our whole life because the world tells us, man, live it up now. And you deserve everything that you can get right now. And the fact of the matter is, we all may not make it. I know it's a downer, but we may not make it through this class.
That's right.
Uh,
That's where
you
that's
never
where
know
we're
what
going
God's
next.
gonna do.
That's right. Time is short, which is the next point. Okay, exactly right. Time is short. The more scarce something is, the more valuable it is. I think I put that on your handout, didn't I? The more scarce something is, the more valuable it is. Think about gold and diamonds, man. If we could just walk around and pick up gold nuggets, it'd be worthless. Yeah. You know, if we were to go to the dollar store and find you know how you buy those big bag glass marbles and you fill container vases and things up with? Or is it vase? Vase or vase. Thank you. All right, so what if we could fill them up with diamonds? Well, they would be just as worthless as those glass marbles, right? So when we look at time, I think goes back to what Neil was saying a while ago. We look at time, we think, man, there's so much of it. What difference does the moment make? What difference does right now make in the grand scheme of things? Because look at all this time I've got on my hands. Do you? Do you? But even if you have decades of life remaining, the fact is, James 4:14, you are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Yeah. Speaking of a decade, you ever thought about a decade in terms of 120 months? I spent the last 120 months doing, you know, when you phrase it like that, it sounds like such a shorter period of time. When you think of an entire decade as 120 months, even at its longest, life is never long. So regardless of how much time we have, there's just not enough time left to start later developing our Christ-like. Like, when are we going to start? Right? So it don't matter how much longer you have to live. It's not long enough. It's not much. So the incentive there is to use it well while we have it. All right. And then number 4, time is passing. Not only is time short, but what does it remain? What does remain is fleeting. Time is very much like the sands in an hourglass, slipping away. It reminds me. Okay. I thank you. I was trying to remember. So yeah, I was thinking back to those summer days when I was really wanting to be outside. It was hot, and all my older sisters were in the house. And about 2 or 3 o'clock every day, I would hear them like sands through the hourglass. What is it? These are the days of our lives. I'm like, oh man. So when I read that, I was like, yeah, that brings back some memories. So the girls watching these soap operas, I remember thinking back then, yeah, even when I was a young guy, I remember hearing that and thinking, yeah, if sands were really like that, what a waste of time that is. What a waste of time that is. And we hear people talk all the time about saving time. Oh, I do this a lot when I'm coaching track. I way too much. Hey, you could buy some time in that backstretch back there if you run. Who am I kidding? These kids can't buy time. These kids can't save time. I can't save time. I can't buy time. Time is what it is, right? So, but we use that phraseology all the time to just get, take advantage of what you have when it's there. So just keep in mind that even though those are illusions and those are just ways that we use to motivate people, there's nothing wrong with trying to motivate people, that kind of thing, but, let's get real. Yeah. Even the best use of time cannot put pages back on the calendar. Those little squares on the calendar? You wish sometimes we could just add some at the end of the month? Except when the bills are coming? Yeah. Okay, so that's so time is short and time is passing. And then number 5, the remaining time is uncertain. Not only is it short and passing, but we do not even know how short it actually is. We don't know how quickly it's going to pass. That's why the wisdom of Proverbs 27 verse 1. Proverbs 27 verse 1 says, "Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring forth." There are thousands who entered eternity today, including thousands who were younger than you, who yesterday had no idea that today was their last day. That's a profound statement. Really got me to thinking. You know, had they known that, their use of time would have become far more important to them. Think about our Creator. You know, regardless of how long we want to live, regardless of what we expect to live, okay, so there goes back to that expectations. We have these certain expectations about how long we're going to live. Our time is in His hands. Psalms 31, verse 15. If I didn't put that on your handout, make sure you write that down. Psalm 31, verse 15 is a good one. There is a very real sense in which we must use our time for the purpose of godliness, as though it were uncertain that we would live tomorrow. But that is a very certain uncertainty. So one thing I tell, especially the football players, I tell this to my players all the time. Play, and you hear, this is a cliche thing because it's been thrown around in the football world forever. But play every play like it's, see, everybody knows it, whether you play football or not. Play every play like it's your last. And then I go on and I say, you know what? Because there will be a last play. And you don't know if it's the last one or the next one. But there's going to be a last play. And so, kind of fits in life too, doesn't it? Yeah. There's going to be a last day. And there's something for certain about that, okay, is that we don't know when it is. The only certain thing is that we're uncertain about that last play, that last day. I think they call that in the literary world an oxymoron, right? Did I get that right? The certain uncertainty. Maybe I just made that up. So, number 6, time lost cannot be regained. Time lost cannot be regained. John 9, verse 4. Jesus said, as long as it is day, we must do the work of Him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. The time for the works of God, that is godly living, is now, while it is day. For each of us, night is coming. You know, the author makes a really good point at this right here in the book. He says, you know, many of us reading these lines may be experiencing some grief for wasted years. You regret wasting time, don't you? I know I do. You know, but if we dwell on that, we're just wasting more time. I mean, think about it. We waste a lot of time regretting our wasted time. So what is God's will? How do we fix that toxic cycle? How do we fix that? We don't have to fix it. God fixed it. He told us, the Apostle Paul told us in Philippians chapter 3, verse 13 and 14. Remember what he said? He's forgetting what? That's right. Forgetting what's behind and focusing on toward what is ahead. I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward to, yes, it, Christ Jesus. So God's willing to forgive every millisecond that we wasted. So we don't need to dwell on it any longer. It's done. Any more comments about that one? That's one of my favorites. Number 7, you are accountable to God for your time. You are accountable for our time to God. Romans 14:12 says, so then each one of us will give an account of himself to God. Remember that each one of us applies to who? Christians, non-Christians? Or yes?
Context Christians, but principles.
Yeah, for everybody. Correct. All right. So the Lord will test the quality of each man's work. For each it will be either that he will receive his reward or will suffer loss. He himself will be saved, but only as one escaping through the flames. That's 1 Corinthians 3:13-15. So not only will we be held accountable for our time, but our eternal reward will be directly related to our earthly use of time. Hebrews 5:12. Oh, did I put that on there? All right. Hebrews 5:12. So in this passage, God is chastising the Jewish Christians because basically they're not using their time to spiritually mature. So what does he say? He says, in fact, though by this time you ought to be teachers, you need someone to teach you the elementary truths of God's Word all over again. You need milk, not solid food. If he's going to hold believers to be responsible on earth for not disciplining their time for godliness, no doubt, we'll be responsible in judgment, right? So while we're here, he's holding us responsible. At the judgment, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? We're going to be held accountable for that. Jesus said, I'll tell you that men will have to give an account on the day of judgment for every careless word they have spoken. Matthew 12:36. Wait a minute. So every careless word that I've spoken or texted, I have to give an account for? Oh, please. So if God says, yeah, every careless word you spoke or texted is going to be held, you're going to be held accountable for. Okay, so what about every second I wasted? What about time? We have to give an account. He said in Matthew 25:14-30, this is the parable of the talents. Well, somebody tell us, what was the point there of wasted time? Absolutely. The talent we can quickly, easily apply is time, right? We don't view time as a talent sometimes, right? But it is a resource, and any resource is a talent. In the way this parable is applied. So, yeah, in a way, our time is a gift from God, like we mentioned before. He gives us time and the work to do in that time. So that is definitely a talent, and that is definitely something that we should use and be good stewards of because of because of our reward. Think about the rewards of the three men there in that parable. So he'll definitely hold us accountable for the use of so precious a talent as time. All right, look at number 8. Time is so easily lost. Time is so easily lost. Here we bring, I want to bring to mind Proverbs 26:13. There's a line in the road. Well, this is what the sluggard says. There's a line in the road, a fierce lion roaming the streets. As a door turns on its hinges, so a sluggard turns on his bed. So what is the modern sluggard saying today? Well, if I drive to church, I might get hurt in a car wreck. I think I'll just stay in bed. It's Friday, work is optional today. I think I'll just stay in bed. So, if I go there on a Thursday night, I'm going to miss my favorite TV show. So just the sluggard has a different track today. But the sluggard never seems to have time for the things that really matter. Proverbs 24:33-34 is another good one there. Also, many people value time as silver was appraised in the days of Solomon. It said to him in 1 Kings 10:27, the king made silver as common in Jerusalem as stones. And that goes back to the idea, what about the gold and diamond? What if they were common? What if it, so a lot of people just throw time around as if it means nothing. All right, and then number 9 on your list, we value time at death. We value time at death. Hey, what story do you think of when you think of somebody valuing time only in death? Lazarus and the rich man. Yeah. Yeah, what was that? Was there another one I missed? What did the rich man say? He wanted more time, didn't he? What did he wanted more time to do what? You know who else wanted more time? There's a French guy that thought he was really smart. His name was Voltaire. Heard of him? In his dying words, the famous French infidel, Voltaire, said to his doctor, I will give you half of what I'm worth. He didn't even say all of what I'm worth. He just said half of what I'm worth if you'll give me 6 months to live. So desperate were his cries when it was his time to go that the nurse who was tending to him said, for all the wealth in Europe, I would not see another infidel die. Also, Thomas Hobbes wrote this. Thomas Hobbes was also an English skeptic. He said, if I had the whole world, I would give it to live one day. That's sad to see skeptics and infidels in agony, right? The Bible warns believers who pursue a course based more on pleasure than joy found in the way of God's disciplines that they will have regrets when their time is gone. At the end of your life, you will groan. When your flesh and body are spent, you will say, how I hated discipline, how my heart spurned correction. I would not obey my teachers or listen to my instructors. I have come to the brink of utter ruin in the midst of the whole assembly. And that is in Proverbs 5:11 through 13. All right, and finally, time's value in eternity. What is time's value in eternity? So if there are any regrets in heaven, there will only be one. Not that there will be, that's a big if. If there's any regrets in heaven, it'll be that we only did not use our earthly time more for the glory of God and growing in His grace. Luke 16:25, we see this story of Lazarus, the rich man. Abraham replied to him, son, remember that in your lifetime you received your good things, while Lazarus received bad things. But now he is comforted here, and you are in agony. Okay, so that's it on time. Can you put the same emphasis on the importance of money? Absolutely we can. So the rest of that list there that you have on your handout on the back is just New Testament principles of giving and being good stewards of money. But everything that we talked about in time, you could apply to money. So not only, there are some things you can replace money. There's been plenty of people who filed bankruptcy and have went on to earn millions after that, right? Yeah, it happens. All right. So just something you can take with you is that list there for money and all those Bible references. I think you'll enjoy looking at that as well. Thank you for your attention.